Welcome to World Talk Brief. You've probably heard a lot about the water crisis, right? Well, today we're going to dig a little deeper. We're going to talk about something a lot more permanent, a more systemic issue, this idea of global water bankruptcy.
So, here's what's on the docket today. First up, what exactly is water bankruptcy? Then we'll get into what's causing it. After that, we'll look at the conflicts it's sparking and the cities it's pushing to the edge. And we'll wrap up by talking about what we can actually do about it.
In this quote, wow, it really hits you, doesn't it? It's from Professor Kaveh Madani, who led a huge UN report on this. And listen to what he's saying. This isn't some far-off problem we need to worry about later. He's telling us, flat out, the bankruptcy is happening right now.
All right, let's dive into our first section. We're going to talk about why the word bankruptcy is so important here, and frankly, a lot more accurate than just calling it a crisis. Okay, so here's the key difference, and it's a big one. Think of a crisis as a temporary setback. You get through it, you get back to normal. But bankruptcy, that's totally different. It means you've spent so much for so long that there's no going back. We've basically overdrawn our planet's water savings account. You know, the aquifers, the glaciers, all of it. And the damage is so deep that the old normal just doesn't exist anymore.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. It has a real, massive human cost. We're talking about 4 billion people. Let that sink in. That's roughly half the population of Earth, who are already dealing with serious water shortages at least 1 month out of the year. The scale of this is just mind-boggling.
And if you pull the camera back and look at the whole picture, country by country, it's just as grim. A full 75% of us live in countries that are officially water insecure. So this isn't a problem for, just a few dry places on the map. It's a truly global condition. This really shows just how far into the red we've gone. Think about this. Over half of our planet's big lakes have lost water since the 90s. 2 billion people are living on ground that's literally sinking because we're pumping out the water underneath. Our food system, it's right in the middle of these danger zones. And the scariest part? Scarcity is lighting fuses all over the world, leading to a massive spike in conflicts.
So, that's the what. Now for the why. In this next section, we're going to look at what's actually driving this. And it's a fascinating mix of a really old problem and a brand new, incredibly powerful thirst.
We hear a lot about our own water use, taking shorter showers, fixing that leaky faucet, and that stuff is good, but it's not the whole story. The real elephant in the room, as you can see here, is agriculture. It drinks up about 70% of all the fresh water we pull from the planet.
So why is farming so thirsty? Well, a big part of the answer is something called perverse subsidies. It's a weird term, but basically it means governments are spending over $700 billion a year on policies that actually encourage waste. For example, they might make electricity for water pumps super cheap. Sounds good, right? But what it really does is encourage farmers to pump way more water than they need, essentially paying them to drain the underground water sources. So here you can see the old and the new, side by side. On one hand, you have the classic problem, farming inefficiency. A mind-blowing 60% of water used for irrigation is just wasted. But then, on the other hand, you have the brand new problem, artificial intelligence. Just a single, complex search on an AI platform uses a surprising amount of water, mostly to keep those massive, powerful data centers from overheating.
And we're just at the beginning of this. The amount of water AI is going to need is set to just skyrocket. And here's the really critical part. Big tech companies are already setting up shop and pulling massive amounts of water from places that are already struggling with shortages. Take a look at these numbers. Microsoft admits that 41% of the water it pulls is from these stressed areas. That raises some really serious questions about fairness, right? Who gets the water when there's not enough to go around?
In this fight for water, whether it's for data centers or for farms, it doesn't stop at the border. It's spilling over into international relations, which brings us to our third section, geopolitical flashpoints. Because when water gets this scarce, rivers, they can turn from lifelines into battle lines.
To really get a grip on these conflicts, there's a key concept you need to know: hydrohegemony. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It's when one country, almost always the one upstream at the source of a river, uses its location as a weapon. They can control the flow, basically holding the downstream countries hostage and creating this really dangerous power imbalance.
And the textbook case for this is the Tigris-Euphrates Basin. These are the rivers where civilization itself was born. But today, they're at the center of some really intense friction between Turkey, Syria, and Iraq.
Just look at how this plays out over time. Starting back in the 70s, Turkey, the country upstream, starts building a whole network of massive dams. Fast forward today, and the amount of water actually making it down to Baghdad in Iraq has been cut by a third. There's a recent deal on the table, basically trading Iraqi oil for Turkish help with water systems. But that itself just goes to show you who holds all the cards.
And this isn't just happening in the Middle East, it's a global pattern. Take the Nile River, where Ethiopia's huge new dam is causing major anxiety downstream in Egypt and Sudan. Or look at the Indus River, where you have two nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, already in a tense situation that's only getting worse because of the strain on the water they both depend on.
Okay, so we've talked about the global view, we've talked about nations in conflict. Now let's bring it right down to the ground level, to the cities we live in. This is where the idea of water bankruptcy stops being an idea and starts becoming, well, terrifyingly real.
So let me ask you, what happens when a giant city literally drains the ground it's built on? It's like drinking the water out of your own foundation. The results are, well, there are two big ones, and neither of them are good.
First, you get what's called a day zero event. That's the nightmare scenario where the taps for millions of people could just run dry. It almost happened in places like Cape Town and Chennai. The second thing, the city actually starts to sink. It's called subsidence. When you pull all the water out, the ground compacts like a dried-out sponge. And we're not talking tiny amounts. Look at these cities. They're sinking by centimeters every single year. And here's the kicker. Once that ground compacts, it's permanent. It can't hold water like it used to. That is textbook water bankruptcy.
So that's the problem. It's a lot. Which brings us to our last section. What do we do now? How do we find a new way forward? Because this isn't about managing a crisis anymore. This is about managing a bankruptcy. It's about facing this new reality head-on and making some tough but absolutely necessary choices.
So what would a plan look like? Well, here's a 4-step agenda. Step 1, fix those crazy subsidies. Take that $700 billion and instead of encouraging waste, use it to promote conservation and smart irrigation. Step 2, demand transparency. You can't fix what you can't see. So industries, especially big water users like AI, have to come clean about their water use. Step 3, get serious about international cooperation. We need real, legally binding treaties for shared rivers, not just friendly handshakes. And Step 4, invest in infrastructure that helps everyone, especially the most vulnerable. Think less about giant dams and more about local projects like water recycling and ensuring clean water access for rural communities.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just an environmental issue that you can put in a box. Water is the foundation of, well, everything. You simply can't have a stable economy or food security or even international peace if your water situation is broken. It's all connected.
And that really brings us to the final big question. For so long, we've acted like water is this infinite thing we can just use and abuse without consequence. But now we know that's not true. We know what water bankruptcy is. So the real question for all of us is, how much longer can we afford to pretend? Subscribe to World Talk Brief for more clear, thoughtful explanations. World Talk Brief, news explained without the noise.